You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Good morning and welcome to Old Town Cleveland here on WOOP FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.woopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553. Good morning, Debbie Moore. Tell me what's going on.
Good morning, Ron. It is July the 1st already, and a lot of activities going on this holiday weekend. What are you doing over there?
I've got my headphone cord wrapped around my chair.
Folks, it's pretty entertaining. I hope you're watching on the internet. It's not quite as entertaining as the day that he fell out of his chair, though. That was pretty good, too. But anyway, it's July the 1st, and we have looks like a little bit of a cloudy morning, but I think it's going to get warm later. And that was Ken Rush contacting me there. He's going to call us here in a few minutes and tell us about all the stuff going on up in Ducktown today. We have Laura Spann and Joe Bryan here with us today. We're going to be talking about Calhoun, Tennessee, and other areas around there. We were talking earlier on a promo that we did for the show that this is Calhoun's really one of the most historic towns in America that hasn't gotten much recognition, but the recognition is coming now. And we'd like to send out prayer.
I got some tough questions.
He does. He was asking me questions last night, and I said, well, the people you need to be asked is tomorrow. You need to be asking those folks.
You know I ask questions because I have no idea what the answer is.
But they're very good questions, though.
So whatever you tell me, I will have to believe, you know. That's a good thing about history. Most of the people that we talk about are already gone. They can't argue your facts.
Right. So. We'd like to send out our prayers and best thoughts to the firefighters up in Athens, Tennessee. We understand that there's a fire in historic downtown Athens, and we hope that they can get that under control.
It would be north of the Robert E. Lee Hotel.
No, west of the Robert E. Lee.
North or west? If you're standing there facing the Robert E. Lee, it's to your left.
Yes, it's the very end building, yes. One of the very historic buildings. We understand that maybe some renovations were going on there, and they've had, looks like a major fire.
Good luck to all those people up there, and save the building, and all the firemen stay safe. And there are several fireworks going on around.
Speaking of fires.
All over our community tonight. So
Not tonight, Tuesday night.
Well, there's some tonight, too.
I don't know about the ones tonight, but Mount Olive and Larry Hill Ford will be having their big one Tuesday night near the Bradley Square Mall. The mall will be closing at 7 p.m. to allow people to come in there and park for the fireworks. And then, of course, our good friends down in Flint Springs always have their 4th of July chicken barbecue, and that will be on the 4th. It's $8 a plate. I would imagine that those
chicken quarter, baked beans, coleslaw, bread, and they cook those chickens right there. Right. Oh, it's good.
It's good. And I think that actually that's not necessarily a money-making project, but it's a project to get the community to come back together. So if you grew up in Flint Springs or Red Hill Valley or anywhere down in there, you'd see a lot of folks that you know.
Or if you're from Calhoun, you can come down there and
get some good chicken. Yeah, it's $8 a plate, and they sell it till they run out. Now, we have been down there as early as 1 o'clock, and they've been out, or nearly out.
Open at 11.
They open at 11, so get yourself down there and have a good time in the country. Take you one of those little church fans that you used to take and sit in the Baptist church and fan yourself with, and maybe a lawn chair, but they do have places to sit indoors and eat.
The good thing about this is that they'll have some music and some other things going on.
Usually.
But the really good thing is this is not election year, so there'll be no politicians down there shaking your hand, handing out cards.
And our good friend, G-Daddy,
Yes.
will be at Etowah Depot on the Tuesday the 4th, selling his good barbecue made right here in downtown Cleveland, Tennessee.
Very good stuff. Very good. A little spicy for me right at the moment. But
Oh, gosh. Ron, anything that's above Jell-O hurts his belly now, but he's going to get that fixed this week. We also have today is finally Fish Truck Day.
all right.
You can go to the Bradley Farmers Co-op about 11 o'clock, and the truck should be there somewhere around that time, and they will be selling fish for your pond.
If you didn't order, they usually have extra fish.
They usually have extras.
And they've got the things there to carry them home with for your ponds
right.
and lakes. Get that grass carpet, get that milfoil out of those lakes.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of that in the lakes. Okay. What's going on in Calhoun, guys? They looked at each other like,
First thing, tell us about the, let me get the Rivertown Festival, right?
right.
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that real quick. Let's get that out of the way. We'll tell that several times, but when is it, where is it, everything?
Okay, the Rivertown Festival in Calhoun is July 15th. It's from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. We'll have events taking place at two different sites. We'll be down on the river at the Blue Way access point, which most people know is the boat dock. And then the Meadowland Park will be full of events all day. Now, everything for this is river themed. We're the only town in McMinn County that is located on the Hiwassee River. Mm-hmm. So we're hoping that this will be an annual event from here on out. So everything ties to the river. We're going to have a 5K, 1K fun walk and run, and that's called Run for the River. Mm-hmm. We're having a cardboard regatta that will be down at the
look at Ron's face.
At the boat dock, where you can.
We'll make you a boat, Ron.
Right. I've got 2 weeks to work on it.
Cardboard and duct tape and a little bit of glue and show up with a boat.
And a life jacket on, please.
Yes. And one of the prizes in that will be the Titanic Award. It'll be for the most spectacular sinking.
Well, I can see me on cardboard. There's going to be a sinking somewhere along the. There's not that much cardboard out there.
Also, we're going to have we call it the Riverfest Pedal Parade. That will be where young children, they can come and they're going to be decorated strollers, wagons, bikes, trucks, and they are to decorate that in something related to the river. They could convert that to be looking like a boat, and that will be later that afternoon, and there are going to be cash prizes for that, savings accounts for the winners. We're also going to have a sandcastle contest where we're going to have several tons of sand brought in, and you have 2 hours to go over and build a creation that also relates to the river, and that will be judged with awards also. We have a fishing tournament that will start July 10th and run through the 14th, and you fish anywhere on the Hiwassee from 411 down to Highway 58. You take a picture of your catch, and you get a witness signature, and then you bring those to us, and those will be judged based on length. And there's some Bass Pro gift cards will be given to all those winners. We're also having a photo contest, and that's for any photo made on the Hiwassee that pictures the focal point of the Hiwassee River. And you can get those to us. I'll tell you a little later how to find all the forms. We're also having a midstream market at the park, and that will be craft vendors. We're having a whitewater craft zone for kids. We're going to have a Rivertown farmers market where we just, anyone who has produce, plants, anything you want to sell, bring it in, and we have a place set up where you can do that. We want to feature local produce, and we've also gotten with some of the wineries around here, hoping that they'll come and set up displays and promote their business. We're going to have Wild River water games for children. That's 3 hours during the afternoon. Everything involves water. You're going to get wet, so come in bathing suits.
I love that. Come in your bathing suit, Ron.
Yeah. We're going to have entertainment all day on the flood stage under the new pavilion that we now have at the park, which is under construction. We have the backwater food court. We have a big host of food vendors that have all sorts of food. We have everything. And speaking of the food, one of the things that will be there is Boy Scout Troop 616 normally has a big fish fry in the spring where they go to Louisiana and catch fresh fish, transport it back during the night, and do a massive fish fry, which is normally held at the church. They have agreed to move that to our festival date. So we're going to
You
have
got Ron's attention.
we're going to have all of
Fish
that, the fish fry and all the trimmings. And also during the afternoon, there'll be a 3-hour period where we're going to have pontoon boats down at the Blue Way. And if you've never been on the Hiwassee River, just to see it, there are going to be free rides all afternoon where you can just come down and a boat will come and pick you up. And we'll take you upriver to see the bluffs and the old mill site and the farmlands and around Hiwassee Baptist Church. It's a very historic area and it's very scenic. It's so natural. So you can do that at no cost.
That's great.
That's making me tired thinking. You guys don't do anything small, do you? Is that all,
No.
Joe?
No, there's
No.
a ton more.
Keep going.
But that's the big. We're going to have several. We're going to have an exhibit tent where we will have exhibits from the Tennessee Overhill. We've been working with them, and also the Hiwassee River Blue Way, which is sort of new to this area. We're going to have an exhibit that will tell people what that is, and they can pick up brochures and learn more about it. Of course, the Hiwassee River Heritage Center, the Historical Society will also have an exhibit up there, and it will be focused more strictly on Calhoun and the river. And Laura has found lots of old pictures of all the
Unbelievable.
steamboats
Right, yeah.
that used to.
Steamboats that ran on the
Now,
river.
just imagine that, folks. Steamboats coming up the Hiwassee, and let's take just a little. You keep your place, Joe. Tell everybody about that fascinating bridge that was up there, Laura.
Apparently actually it all started, the railroad bridge was low also, but when they built the 1913, what we're calling the highway bridge from Main Street Calhoun over to Charleston, it was a swing bridge, and there was a mechanism in the pier that was on the south side to allow the bridge for half of it to swing open so that the steamboats could come on up the river without having to take down the stacks. And according to the local authority on that subject, he said that they did that one time and it was considered too unstable to try to do that again. I've seen pictures of them, and it really is it would have been an amazing sight.
Well, and we posted the picture. Ron posted the picture on our Facebook page of the bridge, and I had never really looked closely at it. When I got it on my big screen, there's horses and buggies going across it. And so I imagine there were not like transfer trucks, so they weren't worried about the weight, but I'm sure it didn't last very long.
Right.
When did they replace that bridge? Do you know?
Well, they didn't actually replace the 1913 bridge. That was the one that was there that was taken down in the 60s after they built the Lee Highway Bridge over at Bowater.
Too bad that they took it down. That would have made a great pedestrian bridge.
Yes.
I have some pictures I have a history group. We can talk about that a little bit, but I said people have posted their memories of crossing that bridge as it aged. It's interesting to hear the comments of the people that are in their 70s and 80s compared to the people that are in their 50s and 60s, because when it was newer, it was like a big thing. It was the way to get over to Charleston. And then later, as children, people were frightened of it. And of course, a few were daredevils and decided to jump off of it.
Yeah, there's something about a bridge and a river that some, especially those of the male persuasion think they have to jump off of. That is fascinating, Joe.
I have phobias of bridges. Bridges is one of my phobias. And the other thing I couldn't go in the Hiwassee River and noodle.
No.
I'm not going to stick my hand down in a hole in the river and try to catch a catfish. Now, if you catch a cat, I'm not afraid of the catfish. It's the other things that you may run, like a beaver,
Right.
and in your
Or a mink. That's where our mink mascot name came from.
Well, Joe, let me ask you this. We were up in Calhoun the other day and saw that beautiful, beautiful pavilion. How in the world did Meadowlands Park end up with that beautiful, beautiful pavilion?
Well, I guess we were lucky, but we also did a lot of hard work in preparation. We applied in January to the George R. Johnson Family Foundation for a grant to possibly build a new pavilion in the park. Of course, we actually didn't even have a pavilion. We just had the old stage, which was over 30 years old, and it was in bad state of repair. And we just didn't have a place that large groups could come in. And so we were actually awarded a $47,000 grant to actually purchase this entire pavilion kit, which came from Raleigh, North Carolina. It's a huge laminated wood beam structure, and it was all delivered. And so in the last 4 weeks, that structure has risen from the ground, and the actual wood part of it is all completed now. Now we're working on the restrooms. And
Is that what all those concrete blocks were for? Okay, we saw concrete blocks and we were trying to figure it out.
yes, the new pavilion will have 2 restrooms.
Wonderful.
And also a storage area. And we have purchased portable stages that can roll out and just be set up in about 4 or 5 minutes, so we don't use any of the space of the pavilion for that, having permanent stages. We've been really blessed to have a lot of local construction companies help us.
We have good people in Bradley and McMinn County. We certainly do.
After the pavilion arrived, Penn Gulf Industrial Services in Charleston, their crews were over for about 2 weeks every day, and they actually put the entire pavilion up. And it's a very huge, massive structure. It's 85 by 40 feet, I believe. Caldwell Paving donated all of the excavation work and had the site all prepped for us. We've had donations of concrete from Cleveland Ready Mix, the Calhoun Division, Resolute, Olin, McMinn County Commission. They have all made monetary donations to help us take it to a completion stage. So, it's just, at this point, just last week, we technically hadn't had to spend any money locally at that point and had the pavilion already up.
So what do you need? What don't you have, Joe?
Well, we don't have those restrooms completed, which we've lost 2.5 weeks of work based on weather, and that got us way behind. So we have the materials. It just looks like that probably at the festival day we'll still be using the other restrooms, and we don't anticipate that we can have those completed because there's 2,000 block going to get started laying.
You need some block layers?
We actually have block layers. We have electricians who have come in and donated all their labor to do all of the electrical work. We have a plumber contractor has donated his labor to put in all of the plumbing. And so it's just been, we're ending up with a pavilion that would well cost over $100,000, and we couldn't have done it without all of the contributions we've received.
Deb and I drove by there, and she says, "What would that pavilion cost?" And just glancing over there, I said, "That could be $100,000." I mean, I'm going, the beam. I didn't know the beams going across there. I said, "Those are not cheap." And then someone something lifting them up there and put them up there.
That's
It's not
not
cheap.
No, that is
That's
fabulous.
great.
But I think it comes from the fact that you folks in Charleston and Calhoun have worked so hard to preserve the history up there. Everybody sees how hard you're working, and they're glad to throw in what they can do.
Yes.
When they can't give you money, they can come out there and throw some walk around for you. That's great.
Okay. I'm ready for a big history question. Are you ready?
You ready to make up something, Laura?
We're all similar ages here in this room, and Calhoun, Tennessee's always been there as far as we knew, from my lifetime, and so how did Calhoun get started? I mean, it's, of course, I would think it has something to do with the river, and it's, at one point, when did the city form, or when did people move into what we know as Calhoun, Tennessee?
I see Joe pointing back at me. The town of Calhoun was founded by John Walker, who was a Cherokee.
Ran the ferry.
Right, and it was called Walker's Ferry at that time before it was even called Calhoun. And that was a strategic crossing point. From the road that came into what is now Calhoun came from Knoxville. It was called the Road to Blair's Ferry, which is now Loudon. But that was the main corridor between upper East Tennessee and through all of that would have been still Cherokee Nation at that time. But if you were going south into Georgia, that was the main road. And so
it was a Cherokee road at first.
Right. And so then John Walker, at the Treaty of 1819, John Walker was given or allocated the 2 reservations. And we can talk about how that came about if you want to in a little bit. But one of those reservations was there, and he had the town platted out, and it was drawn out in 1819. And we still have the original, not the original plat, but a copy of the original plat. It was redrawn, but it was redrawn from the original, and we have a copy of that. And so he had that drawn out into lots, and then he started to sell the lots, as to have the revenue from that. And so that's where the town of Calhoun was formed. The county of McMinn County was started in John Walker's log house right down in where Calhoun would be. The best we can tell, it probably would have been down, everything's in reference to something that's not there anymore, but there was a Boland store there, and it would have been about a block down from that.
Fairly close to the ferry then?
Yes, there would have been lots down below that, but yes, it would have been right there on
Is
that
this
road.
still Cherokee, or are the white men moving in at this time?
That would have been after the treaty, and the
Treaty,
white
so
men
white
were
men was
there.
moved in.
Yes,
Yeah.
and so the county was formed there in 1819, and stayed the county seat in Calhoun until 1823, and it was moved to Athens because they felt it was a more local,
Okay.
a central location.
Name a couple of the famous people buried there in the cemeteries. Do you think that when this part of Bradley County was the Cherokee Nation, and then across the river was the USA, were they taking people over to the United States and burying them, you think, or were they burying people in Charleston too?
Well, we know just from some of the burials that are there that the people that are buried, the Calhoun Methodist Church and Cemetery dates back to 1820. And probably before that, but we know it was founded by 1820. And if that became white man's territory in 1819, it was still the Cherokee Nation across the river. But there's several people that are buried there. One of those would be Lewis Ross's daughter. Lewis Ross is the brother of John Ross, and he had a business lived in Charleston. And when his daughter died, they came over. So, see, Calhoun would have had the stores, the post office, the churches. They would have all been in Calhoun. And so his daughter is buried
They were
there.
probably members of the church there, or at least attended there.
And then the McCarty family, John L. McCarty was a clerk. He was a War of 1812 veteran, and he was a clerk at the agency. And he is buried there, his wife, his children, and then my favorite, Gideon Morgan. It's a joke now with everybody because I've trace Gideon Morgan's line so that Gideon Morgan is buried there, and some of his descendants. Gideon Morgan was the commander of the Cherokee Regiment at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend. He was a personal friend of Andrew Jackson, and Andrew Jackson asked, that he command that regiment, and so he is there. His daughters moved west eventually. They stayed in Calhoun until around 1870, but his son-in-law was in the Civil War. He died while they lived in Calhoun. He's buried there. He had a grandson that actually drowned in the river when he was about 3, and he's buried there. And then he has another granddaughter that was married and had 3 children, and then she died, and she's buried there. And then the children went to live with the grandmother out in Oklahoma eventually.
We talked with another historian that's not from this area on Tuesday. Was that on Tuesday or Wednesday? And he would mention somebody's name, and Laura and I would say, "Oh, we know him." This is somebody died in 1830, but we know him because we've studied him for so long.
Right. And you're becoming very curious about their background, and that the history of the cemetery in itself is really interesting. And is this a good time for me to tell about the open area?
Go right ahead. You just tell whatever you want to tell.
Well, I said it's
I think
one
that
thing
is a
just leads to
fascinating
another.
thing.
It is. If we're going to talk about the graveyard, I said those were.
Now, is this the one across from Meadowlands, or is this the one by the church?
This one, the Methodist Church in Calhoun was there on Church Street, and it is where the gazebo is now because we built a new church. Joe and I grew up in that old church, but in '63, is that when we built the new church, Joe? And eventually, of course, the church was torn down, which now we regret. But the church was founded in 1820, and then the Baptist church was founded in 1858. But in all the old records, it refers to that as the Methodist Cemetery. There was also a Christian church right across the road, and so part of that cemetery was the cemetery apparently for that Christian church. But over in the churchyard, in the church graveyard, between what we call the old section of that and the new section, there's a kind of a V-shaped area that doesn't have any grave markers in it. And we have always assumed that there were people that were buried there, but never knew. And that's probably been 2 years ago now, Brett Riggs came and brought some LIDAR, which is ground-penetrating radar equipment there, and scanned that whole area and found 88 unmarked graves in that section of the cemetery. So therefore, that raises a question which, who knows if we'll ever answer it, if those could have been some people that were living across the river, or was that an old Cherokee burial area before the church started? We don't have any way of knowing. You can tell from the scan of that area, sometimes there would be 4 graves just beside each other as if it were a family. They had like there would be was it typhoid, I think, about that time. Sometimes it was just measles, epidemics that came through.
Whooping cough.
Right.
Tuberculosis.
Right.
It would just wipe out whole families.
Right. So back to your question then, Ron. That is how the town of Calhoun was formed. It was a strategic location there. John Walker founded it, platted it out, sold those lots. He also ended up going bankrupt, and Gideon Morgan kind of bought that out from him and owned a lot of that property at that time. Eventually, it had changed hands a lot. But those original lots still retain the same lot number 200 years later.
That's what I was wondering. Is the city still laid out pretty much like it was?
Is it still a mile square?
I think that's amazing. In Bradley County, there's 5 main roads go through there. It's the same main roads that were here when it was formed.
Right.
So that's interesting. So you think that that the community, because of river traffic, good way to get things up and down, travel, and then that these were traders that would trade with the Cherokees? You think that they found an opportunity for a untapped market? It's like
and
the
it
first
was
time
on a road.
Yeah,
it was on the wagon
went
road.
into China. It's like an untapped. We can start selling a lot more McDonald's now.
Right.
So this was white men trading white men goods and guns and knives and things that the Cherokees may have not had before.
And what
white
you
men
see
involved.
too, and these guys will attest to this, is that you see people moving into McMinn County, and they're just waiting for the Indian land to open up. And people like Benjamin Hambright.
There's hawks sitting in the tree waiting for that thing to move
they
out.
sure were, and they were, trying to show that, how that they had talents and skills that would be needed in the new area, and were allowed to move in early.
Well, let's move forward a little bit into the 20th century. At one time, in your lifetimes, that Calhoun still had a very active downtown business district. They were stores, drugstores, and
What all was down there, guys? Name some of those businesses you went to all your life.
Harris Drugstore.
We had a couple of grocery stores, fairly large stores there. We had a drugstore, barber shop. There was a what they call the old hotel boarding house. They actually showed movies in the basement of it. There was a big restaurant. Even prior to that, then you had a lot of many more stores in the early 1900s. You had your blacksmith. We had a watch maker,
Right,
repairman, jeweler. It used to really be a
Well, Charleston was too,
Yes.
and so was, all the little towns, Ducktown,
Well, yeah.
Cohutta, all those towns were striving little. You could get everything you needed.
Here's my next question. We know in the 50s, Bow Waters came, so a lot of jobs. Should have brought more and more people in there. What happened to the little town of Calhoun? Basically, as we know it today, it's a lot of empty stores. There's still people live there, but there's actually no retail
Very
businesses
few
down
of-
Main,
right.
Main Street. Some of the buildings are gone even now. Why did Calhoun stores just disappear? Seemed like with Bow Waters coming there, and then that this was a huge build for the community. What happened?
well. One
It's
thing
just
I think
I don't
is,
know. So, it's very interesting.
as an early town, it just wasn't the small population of Calhoun who came in to support the businesses. I mean, you came all the way from, south of Athens, Sanford, Riceville. I mean, there was a lot more people who traveled in on wagons, to come to the businesses. Charleston people would come over. The population probably doubled when Bowater came. And we did get some new businesses when they came. The shopping center was built and
Built the whole housing development.
and built a whole new subdivision of, about 100 and something houses. And so, yeah, there was a jump, but the population has never gone above 650 since even when Bowater came. And, of course, it's down around 500 now because a lot of people have moved and families don't have as many children as they used to. But
I think mobility has a lot to do with it. There's the big shopping centers.
yes, that's, everybody travels to somewhere else to buy. And just a couple of hundred people cannot support an entire
You
town
don't have
anymore.
a Western Sizzler down there, so there are people going to go to the.
Well, now they do have a quite active Hardee's.
Yes, well, everybody has one of those.
And matter of fact, is that not associated with the
Jo-
George
Joe, you're-
Johnson?
Joe-
Yes.
great.
Joe, am I correct saying that you're a city official?
Yes, I'm the city manager.
Well, so we got big shots in here today.
There you have one.
Let's open up the phones here. You can call us here at 614-5553. We got Laura Bryan Span and Joe Brian. I started to call him Joe Span, but they're
And you guys are cousins, correct?
We are.
Yeah, there you go.
all right. So you can call us here and talk to about your memories of Calhoun, or if you want to know more about the Rivertown Festival coming up, please give us a call, 614-5553. So what time frame did it start leaving, in the 60s, 70s? When did the town say,
Just as
So
the
it
people
sort of
got
just-
old.
did it just fold and just sort of seem to disappear?
I would say by, the late 60s, we started seeing, the stores, the grocery stores leave downtown, and that's because, you look around and Cleveland has grown so much, and Athens, and so there's, people, and with modern highways and, what used to take all day to come to Calhoun to buy something, now you can be somewhere else in 10 minutes.
Well, Amazon will bring it to your door.
Exactly. So
That's true.
But,
yes, because when Bowater came, there was an influx of people, and see, that was the time, that's what I was saying. Bowater was built in 53. I think they started production 53. And in 59, we had a new high school that we built because the population had increased. We built our new church building, in 63, and so it was like a wave kind of people moving in and filling up those new houses. And sorry to butt in, but it was like people did become more mobile, and some of the people then that had come and moved in moved to Cleveland and Athens. Also, still worked at Bowater.
Yeah, and the same thing has happened to Charleston. Charleston seemed to have survived a little bit more, but they're basically up on the main highway. So everything in Calhoun now is more the highway now. And so
I'm hoping with that pavilion, you guys are going to get the farmers, like to have a farmer's market every week.
I'm going to tell you, 30 years ago, I actually played on that stage at the Meadowlands.
you did.
Yeah, our band, Tennessee Tea.
I remember that.
We were there playing. I was the bass player for them. So a few years ago. But so I'm just smiling to say that there's venues like that. What's some of the family names that are up there? I know Liners are up there, and of course you're Spans, and there's a lot of Moores up there. There, more family buried down the Hiwassee Baptist Church Cemetery. Matter of fact, I got to go see my great uncle's grave for the first time the other day. So, and then all the other Moores are all dead and gone. Out of that particular family, I think they have great grandchildren now, may still be alive, or maybe a few grandchildren, but all of them are all gone. But what other family names do you recognize with Calhoun, Tennessee? Meg's, of course, Meg's, wasn't it?
His questions just go on and on. You just have to figure out when you want to jump in.
When I stop.
Well, of course, you had the Hambrights. They were.
There's a cemetery there, isn't there? I need to go to that one too, Laura.
We do need to go because Peter Hambright was a Revolutionary War soldier, and he's buried in that.
Has his grave been marked? Okay.
Yeah, and they were also the Hambrights were part of the early government of Calhoun. And
well, Benjamin left there. He was the county court clerk, I believe, and he moved into Bradley County. I heard that Dalton.
Yeah.
And you're right about saying people were waiting on that land to open up, because if you look at the land grant records, the land, the Cherokees gave it up in 1819, and you start looking at 1820, and the land grant book is just full of people acquiring all those river bottoms and those farms. And so, yes, they were ready and sitting there going to jump in and get it as quick as they could. So, and that's what the Hambrights did. They got the big farm upriver. And of course, some other names, that go back. You got Gamblins, Myerses,
The McCamishes, the Shamlins, the Sheltons. Tell a little bit about James Shelton. Is that the early Shelton, and where he was?
Well, the Sheltons also, they came down by flatboat from Greene County, and they actually traveled down in 1819. So that shows that they were already scouting land, knowing that it was going to open up. But they settled downriver west from Calhoun, and actually ended up building their own community down there. And that's a whole story itself. It was called Raht, Tennessee, R-A-H-T.
Okay.
And they had their own post office and their stores, and of course they had the big river bottom farms. But they prospered. They actually had a ferry. This would be almost across from B&B Marina.
I started to say the Roth Ferry was at B&B Marina.
Yeah.
And so they built a couple of great big huge homes down there.
And what family was this?
The Sheltons.
The Sheltons. Okay.
And actually had their own church that they built in memory of one of the daughters who had died, and that was a Methodist church. The building is still down there, even though it's about to fall over. It's one of the most beautiful old church buildings anywhere around. And
Now, where is that at? Tell me where that is. It's across from B&B. But how would you get
You
out?
would, in Calhoun, you would get on 163, the access road to the interstate.
Uh-huh.
And you would go over the interstate and just continue on that road until you get down to the Backwater Creek area. And there's an old store building there on the left. Used to be called Lamontville Store.
Okay, yeah.
You would turn left there and just drive that road out.
Oh,
And
yeah,
you'll
I know where
eventually
you're talking
you'll
about.
run
Yeah.
into the church. And
Translation, Ron will be there.
The church,
He's got that
the church
technique.
is on private property, but the road is a public road,
Right.
and so you can see the church very well. It's just right beside the road.
And if you go on down below that church on a small dirt road, you will come to the old Shelton Cemetery, which has the original 1819 pioneers all buried there.
Oh, that's
You
cool.
can read every one of their markers, and it's an entire family. You know, I don't know how many. There's
Now, the rod, would that be related to Julius Ross?
Let's get this call. Hang on. Hold that question. Let's get this call.
Hey, caller, go ahead. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, it's Ken with the Ducktown Basin Museum.
Hey, Ken, how are you, sir?
What's going on up in Ducktown today?
Well, I'm making popcorn right now.
Oh, yum!
Oh, I love hot popcorn.
Let's see. At 11 o'clock, we've got an employee reunion up here in the Hoist House for anyone that's worked for any of the companies in the basin, any department. And then at 11 as well, there's a Great American Rubber Duck Race down on Spruce Street in Ducktown. At noon, the Eastern Star will be serving soup bean dinner at the Ducktown's Masonic Lodge. That's from noon until 2.
We've been to their dinners before. They're good.
Yeah, they're good. They know what they're doing. They've made a few pots of soup beans. Oh,
Yeah.
And let me see here.
Listen to the popcorn.
At noon, there's also a beauty pageant that'll be going on down on the Dr. Lee stage.
I need to enter.
At one, yeah, but they won't let us enter that. And at 1 o'clock, the school reunion is going on over at Copper Basin High School. And then at 7 tonight, down on again the Dr. Lee, W.R. Lee stage, the Haywire will be performing. They're Southern rock and country for the most part. And then at 9:30, there'll be fireworks from top of Schoolhouse Hill here in Ducktown. So,
Is the museum open today?
museum is open until 4:30.
Okay, where I saw on Facebook that Harriet Fry's not going to be able to do autographs today, but where can they? A brand new book just came out that's got lots and lots of good pictures in it about the basin. Where can people get that book?
We have it for sale at the museum. Harriet woke up this morning feeling under the weather, and she just did not feel like she needed to get out and about. But we have the book for sale at the museum, and we will have it going forward. It's $22. It's part of the Arcadia Press series, if you're familiar with that.
And you can pick up.
They do several historic books all across
Yes, they do.
on Tennessee's Great Copper Basin. It is for sale at $22, and at some point in the future, we'll get a makeup signing day with Harriet. It's just not going to happen today.
Yeah, and guys, you can also pick up a copy of "It's Home: The Ducktown Basin" documentary that Ron and I did.
We actually sold several copies of it this morning during our pancake breakfast.
There you go.
You know,
We need to, hey, Kim, we need to come up and do another showing of that in that community.
I agree.
well, Ken, you know, if for you who have not been to the Ducktown Basin Museum, it's well worth it. It's a great museum, and some great people who know a lot about the area, usually in there working, and they're better than the museum usually.
There's a lot of truth to that statement.
Yes, you know, and it's a great museum for you to go. It is the whole Copper Basin for young people. Just if they drive through there now, need to go to the museum and see what it looked like in 1960.
Right.
Totally different place.
Yep.
Well, Ken, we appreciate you so much, and thanks for letting us know what's going on up in Copper Hill and Ducktown Basin today.
Well, you're very welcome, and we appreciate y'all. And y'all have a good show.
Hey,
All righty, bye-bye.
you've made me hungry. Popcorn, soup, beans, and phew.
I tell you, I just have dumped the pot.
Oh, well, hey, you guys run the rest of the show. I'm headed to Copper
We're
Hill.
headed up to the mountain. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Ken.
All right.
We love to have Ken on our show, too.
I think
He's
he's been
so knowledgeable.
27, 28 years has been the director of that museum up there. Lives here in Cleveland.
Oh, does
So he runs that River Road every day for 27 years. He just his car just goes there now. He doesn't even have to drive it.
I'm driving up there one day to do some recording, and I'm probably doing the speed limit a little bit above, and this little black car goes around me. I got up there several minutes after he did, and I gave him a lecture about being careful. He said he doesn't even think about it anymore. He just goes. But anyway, I'm glad he called.
So what was my question?
I don't know what your question was, but they had an answer for you.
we were talking about that's bad, isn't it? We were
The
talking
Roth
about the
was that
Sheltons
was,
and the
was that was they related? That Roth name is a unusual name. R-A-H-T. Julius Roth had owned the copper mines. Roth.
I always
Well,
thought
that-
it was his ferry.
Would they be related?
I always thought it was his ferry.
I don't really know.
We don't know.
I do know the post office there was called Rod, and but it was all on Shelton property, and they had stores and everything else.
See, I
down
did not
around
know
it.
that.
So, and you could actually
That's unusual.
20 years ago, you could still go down by where the old house used to be and follow the lane down, and you could actually get out in the lower fields near the river, and you could still see the foundations of some of those old buildings and things that were there. So it's a little thriving community. And obviously the Sheltons made a lot of money down there because they were able to build some really nice homes and have a lot of stuff.
Hey, folks, you're listening to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553. If you're out of the area, you can use 423-614-5553. We got Laura Spann and Joe Bryan in here talking about Calhoun, Tennessee history, and talking about their Rivertown Festival coming up. That's July 15th, right?
Yes.
And it's
10
an
to
all-day
6.
thing, and it's free to come, but if you want food, just like any type of fair, there'll be some charges on some things. But it'd be worth walking around and seeing the river.
Where are you
and-
going to park everybody, Joe?
Well, we're
That's the
actually gonna,
$100,000 question.
we're actually going to be using the ball field for
Parking.
some parking. We're going to place everybody behind the fence up into the tree area. And, of course, there are areas across the street around City Hall, the post office, the cemetery, Church Street. There's quite a bit of parking over there, and people
I would
park there.
suggest that if you're able, that you park over at the church and walk over, and that would leave the spaces closer to the action to people that maybe cannot walk as far.
Yeah.
That would be a nice thing for people to do.
I hope you just flood the whole
I hope
area.
it's a big problem.
I hope
that you-
Well, we do too. We hope it's a big problem to deal with.
You know,
that
these
day,
people, people do these festivals, and it's,
It takes a little while to get your feet under you.
get back into your community, people who've lived there to come back there. And talking about that, Laura started the Calhoun,
History.
Tennessee community.
Calhoun Community History, and then I have Tennessee after
Right.
this, so as
So
so
it's
they didn't
not Georgia.
get confused with Georgia.
Right. So if you're on
Facebook page.
Facebook,
Group.
you need to go join that group and look at the pictures. Oh my goodness, I've sit there and just drooled over these pictures.
These are the pictures that are up and under people's beds.
That's right. They're everywhere.
And no one has shared them because no one has shown an interest. But once Laura started the Facebook, it's like little clips of home movies
Yeah,
and a glimpse into time when Calhoun was a bustling town.
Right. And whether you grew up there or not,
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I posted a couple of pictures last night. I do my midnight work, and I said I posted a couple of pictures last night, and some of those, one of them was, some of you would be familiar with C.L. McAllister. C.L. McAllister grew up in Calhoun. He became the Bradley
not know
County
that.
historian. He sure did. And he was the Bradley County historian, and he ran those old pictures in the newspapers, for probably, about 10 years or so. Bless
Folks,
him.
that would be the
bless him.
school pictures, and 9 times out of 10, he got the people when they still remembered the names.
He knew them all. And so I posted one. One of them was the Clear Springs Chestewie eligible bachelor picture.
Yeah, I
And
saw that. I
I
laughed.
said I posted that one last night, and I knew that some of the names, he had them identified, but what would have it ran through in the paper, and I copied those articles, but some of the pictures, the original picture, is at the history branch, and I've scanned those, which are much clearer. But when I recognized one of them was a Scarborough, recognized the names, and then I sent a message to one of the descendants of one of the people in the picture, and so she got on there. She had a copy of the newspaper article that didn't have the picture, and so, but what I was going to say was I started looking back at those names to see if the people lived in Calhoun, and they, a lot of them actually had moved to Polk County. I also had one that was, I'm trying to remember the date on it. It seems like it was 1911, and it was eligible bachelors in Calhoun, and he had labeled it the Beau Brummels, and I said they're all dressed up in their suits and their hats, and I was curious about some of those. Some I had already researched. One of them that was named Gene Farrington, and his name was actually Eugene, and I looked that back up because that is an unusual name. That's not a common family name at all in that area. And his father was a silversmith. We were talking about the professions of people in Calhoun early on, and so he was appointed as he was a silversmith in Calhoun after they moved, and he was appointed the postmaster in 1899 in April, and he died in November, and his wife was appointed postmaster. You can find those postmaster records, but that whole family's buried right there beside the sidewalk as you go up Church Street, the Farrington name. And so there were people that would move in. You were asking about family names. People would move in like that, and then their children moved away, and so they didn't continue that name. And of course, then we have other ones that the descendants of a lot of those early people that are still there.
Those early postmasters were usually patronage jobs, right? And so somewhere you would be able to tell the politics of the family according to who the president of the United States was at that time.
That's true, because
Democrats in charge. There was
Right.
Democrats in charge of the post office.
Yeah, it's just
Republicans in charge. Republicans.
Big House of Farron and softball. Spell that for me. How's that spelled?
it's spelled Salpaw, but it has several different origins.
Salpaw.
One of those was Salbach, I believe is how it was spelled. We have the Salpaw family had written a history, and so we have some of that, and they had researched
Now,
it.
did they not own part of the across the river, what they call the Bend of the River farm now? The old Barnell farm?
No,
Well,
did they own that?
That's a daughter.
Oh, it was
That's a daughter that
Yes.
married a Barnell.
Yes.
Right.
yeah, so, but there's what they call the Salpaw Mansion there. It's still standing, right?
In Calhoun.
Lou.
Yeah,
Yes.
Lou.
Lou, what's Lou's last name?
Limley.
Yeah, we just know Lou.
Ah, my mind went blank.
But how old
Which
is
is not
Lou's
unusual.
house, which is a kind of a gold-colored, kind of Victorian-colored house? He has it painted that route. How old is
Right.
that house? 1870s, 80s?
I think he places that late 1870s.
The Salpaws, George Salpaw was the older one, and he was a stonemason and a bridge builder, and he built the first Gay Street Bridge in Knoxville, and they moved in to that area, and there was an existing mill up at where the East Denali Creek runs into the Hiwassee River. And so there was an existing mill there, and the McElrath family sold that out to the Salpaws. And then G.L. Salpaw is the one that built the house that's still standing And I don't remember now if that's a son or I think it was his son. And so that would be about right, because the original, what we called the old Saw Paw Mansion, which is not there anymore, but
where was it? Old Saw Paw.
It was up there
by the mill.
Yes, and the mill dam is still up there. And
you'll see it as you go along the river. You'll see the trestle. Is that right? Or you see something? You can see some kind, and then you can see it right under there.
If you're down at the River Road and you go down by the boat dock, which is what we're, now we're going to have the Blue Way kiosk there. That road is an old historic road also that ran parallel to the river, like a lot of those did. And so that was where that mill was there and was active. And that was John Walker's upper mill reservation. When I said he got two, one of them became the town of Calhoun, and the other one was where he had his mill there on the East Sonoma Creek. And so that's the origin of that.
What happened to the mill building?
That when the TVA bought that and tore it down when they were going to open it. Flood it with the Chickamauga Dam, and so that was that. The building itself was torn down. We have wonderful old pictures of that, though. If you'll just go to the history Facebook group and look, there it is.
Which was amazing to me, because I had asked, and I saw a drawing of it, and then finally it shows up. Pretty amazing. Here in these last 3 or 4 minutes, Laura and I'll probably talk a little bit here about Tellico Plains last week. We did have the Trail of Tears meeting up there, and Laura was instrumental in helping set that up too. And her friend Pam Hall Matthews from the Charles Hall Museum up there was a enormous help, along with her husband that was willing to, that man that will put out chairs and tables and climbed up on a big old sign and hung a sign for me. But we had over 100 people there, and that was a huge success, and a lot of people interested in their Native American heritage, and some people just curious about the removal, which did come right through Tellico Plains.
And we're going to set up a Trail of Tears display tent at the Rivertown Festival, and then we'll also have that in the Cowpea Festival in September over in Charleston, and have some brochures and maps available there. And some people there.
We just don't. Charleston was the ground zero for the removal, but so was Calhoun.
Right.
And the other day we became more and more. We decided that was even more true than we thought it was, because we saw a map that had buildings there.
Didn't they bring the troops been breaking in Cherokees from the north that had overhill?
Well, we know that the ones from North Carolina came right through Calhoun.
Right. They came down through Fort Butler and down through Monroe County, Athens, and see that primary road from Athens then down to the river would have been through Calhoun.
Browns Ferry, that's Walker Ferry.
Walker Ferry.
And the railroad, of course, was not there. And so we have a 1920 aerial photo of Calhoun. And you can see the route of the road, even though the railroad is on that map. You can see where the road would have come right through. And part of that road then, of course, is not paved. And so that's still original. They call it deportation route. I guess that's a polite term. But so that route came right in, and it came down by what's the Shiloh Cemetery, the Meadowlands Park, across the road, down Main Street to the ferry. And we have that marked now as original Trail of Tears.
Which means there's brown signs that says original Trail of Tears sign. Now, what about from there to Athens? Is the route marked?
It is not marked, but we had a wonderful lady, Carol Clark, with the National Park Service from New Mexico. I think that's where she is. Anyway, she did a training session for us on signage, and so we are hopefully beginning the process to establish the signage from along all of that route. And our responsibility for Tennessee Trail of Tears Association, or any of our involvement, would be up to the North Carolina line, and then
North Carolina already has their end marked. Well, we know that Overhills, Tennessee is committed to doing part of that, at least, starting maybe at North Carolina and working this way, and folks in McMinn County are going to start in McMinn County and work that way, and hopefully in our lifetimes. We will figure that all out.
Well, folks, show me.
Yeah, we are all ready to our mid-morning break, and we did have a lot of losses this week in the community, and I know that of one in particular was Miranda Wright, and she was from the Valley View community, just 19 years old, and I believe she was in Indiana and was in a car accident, and her family lost her. And our sympathies go out to them and anyone else that lost anyone this week.
We'll be playing a song after our few sponsors called Gone Home. We dedicate that to all the people that our listeners have lost this week. And we'll be right back here on Old Town Cleveland in about 3 or 4 minutes. Stand by.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Is it time for a new ride? At Buy Here, Pay Here USA, for just $500 today, you can drive it away. Come by any of our 4 locations in Chattanooga, Cleveland, Dayton, and Dalton, Georgia, and find your new ride. For just $500 down, you can drive it away today. Remember, all our vehicles have passed a 200-point inspection and come with a 6-month, 6,000-mile warranty. And you get a free Carfax report and appraisal on your vehicle. Visit us at BuyHerePayHereUSA.com. Offer subject to credit approval. See store for details. We are Buy Here, Pay Here USA.
Tired of standing in line to cash your paycheck? Go to usmoneycard.com. Company doesn't provide direct deposit? Visit usmoneycard.com, the smart and safe alternative to carrying cash. We'll provide direct deposit for your prepaid debit card, or you can deposit cash anytime. Your US Money Card is reloadable and can be used wherever MasterCard is accepted. You never have to worry about overdraft fees. Spend what you deposit. So log on, load up, and love your US Money Card, the safe and smart way to spend. Visit usmoneycard.com for complete details.
Matthews Pool and Spa Company, located in Cleveland, Bradley County for over 45 years. You know them. They're your new swimming pool construction and supply company in Cleveland, Tennessee, now with 4 generations of Matthews to serve you. Matthews Pool and Spa Company, for over 45 years, your swimming pool construction and supply company, spa or hot tub installation and maintenance. Get all of your supplies for your pool or spa right now. That's the new location in the old Quinn Electric Company building behind KFC at 2724 Key Street in Cleveland. Call Matthews now, 476-4521. You better get your order in now for your new pool construction for this spring and summer. 476-4521. Matthews Pool and Spa Company. Gonna jump in. Woo!
Say gone home, gone home, gone home, gone home. They joined the heavenly fold. They're walking the streets of pure gold. They left one by one as the work here was done. Gone home, gone home, gone home, gone home. Sadly, they have gone home, gone home, they have gone home. They joined the heavenly fold. They're walking the streets of pure gold. They left one by one as the work here was done. Gone home, they have gone home, gone home, they have gone home. They're walking the streets of just me.
Welcome back to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can see us and hear us there, and that will be on YouTube in just about 2 or 3 days next week.
Few days.
The 4th of July, we'll probably move it in later in the week, so you'll be able to see and hear this program and download it and save it for your posterity. Is that the right word?
I think we better. I think we better just leave that one alone. Ron.
No, we got Laura Spann here and Joe Bryan. They're talking about the Calhoun Rivertown Festival, which sounds like a great fun. Coming up July 15th, and we're talking about Calhoun history. It's July 15th. Where can they go find all those schedules? So you got a ton of stuff going on.
We do have a lot going on, but you can go to the website www.calhounrivertown.com, and on that page there's a festival link, and when you go to that page you'll see everything about the festival, all the applications for the different events, the rules and regulations, the time frames when things are due, but everything is there. And even if you see something that says, oh, tomorrow is the deadline for that, if you'll just email at the top, there's a city manager at calhounrivertown.com. If you'll just shoot me an email and say, hey, I wanted to get in on this event, I see it's a little late, we'll take care of it, because we are ordering shirts for the race, and we want to make sure everybody who's running the race gets a shirt.
Or walking the race.
Yeah,
that was
Or if
there
you
will
want,
be walkers.
or if you want to build a cardboard box and float out into the Hiwassee River, I'm going to do that.
In his
'cause
speedo.
I can win the Titanic Award. I'm almost positive. But say that website again.
Okay, it's www.calhounrivertown.com, and that'll lead you straight to a festival page, and everything is out there.
Bands, food, water. I mean, you name it. There's going to be a cardboard boat race. You build your boat out of cardboard, and you're going to float in the Hiwassee River, or sink in the Hiwassee River, I should say. You're going to...
I'll have to make Ron a boat that looks like the Titanic.
You got music, you got food, you got art vendors, or vendors.
We've got about every food item you could imagine.
And the one thing you told me, if people didn't hear, is they're going to have free boat rides on pontoon boats. Pontoon boats. That's easy for me to say. Up the river, go upriver. And if you've never went upriver on the Hiwassee, a lot of people have been on the lower part of the Hiwassee, but the upper part is sort of a pristine-looking area through there. You can go up through there and see the old Hiwassee Baptist Church sitting on the left, where they still have church, by the way. And just go up that river, and it's just beautiful up through there. And so I'm coming just to do that. Nothing else. What about if they're vendors?
Let me ask.
Go
ahead.
If people want to be vendors, are you already full, or do you have more vendors?
We still have some room for a few more vendors.
Okay. Food and crafts.
Yes, if we're trying not to duplicate items. So
there you go.
If an item is taken, but all you have to do is go in and send an email to city manager at calhounrivertown.com. We also have a very active Facebook page. That's Rivertown Festival. So you can go on there and see every event. You can see the forms and all the information also. And Monday through Friday, you can even just go by City Hall, and all the applications are down there, or you can just call City Hall, and they'll answer some questions. But all the different events, we're so glad we have sponsors for them, and these sponsors have provided all the prizes that are being given, and there are some hefty prizes in some of these events. The photo contest, first place is $150.
Ooh, where's my camera?
All you have to do is any picture you've made of the Hiwassee River. It doesn't have to be a recent picture. You just sort of have to let us know where you made and when you made that. But get those to us. You can email them to the city manager, and we're going to have those printed that day and on public display. But
Who's sponsoring the photo contest?
Calhoun First Baptist Church
Oh,
is
how nice.
sponsoring the photo contest. The Run for the River is done by Calhoun School. The Cardboard Regatta, the sponsor is Events by Ambiance. The Riverfest Pedal Parade, the sponsor is the Bowater Credit Union. The fishing tournament sponsor is Walker Auto Sales. The Wild River Water Games, the sponsor is Calhoun United Methodist Church. So we've got a lot of local organizations
You sure
that have
do.
come in and taken over.
And it's not the
helping us
big
out.
guys either.
That's
now,
right.
are like from the church? Are you going to have volunteers from there? You think?
Yes, they will have people working. In fact, the games through the Calhoun United Methodist Church, they will be doing all of that. It'll be their people there, and
Wonderful.
the Baptist Church has a photo group that's going to be judging the entries and for that. So all of these people are providing workers there at site too, which gets the whole community involved. And that's we're
Great
so
plan.
small, we have to get everybody
Joe,
involved.
first off, it's amazing how much you're getting done in a little community, you say, with about 500 people. First off, congratulations.
Oh, big deal, yeah.
And I hope people in McMinn County, people here in Bradley County, Calhoun, Charleston, they're brother, sister, or brother, and people ought to come on over from there and from downtown. Do you have barbecue?
We do have barbecue.
Okay, barbecue and a free boat ride.
You got Ron.
July 15th, I'll be there at 9.
yeah.
All right.
Well, I wanted to say too, there's a lot of college kids out there that have to do volunteer hours for Tennessee Promise to get their college money. And this would be a good time for them to jump in and spend some hours. They can just call Joe up at the City Hall in Calhoun and volunteer there.
Yes,
And he'd be glad to fill out their little bit of paperwork they have to do. But I think the deadline was today for the coming year. But they could go ahead and get their hours in for the next year. Or if somebody has a youth group or Boy Scouts or somebody, come on up and volunteer.
yes.
That's right.
Get involved.
We can put you to work if you
Yeah.
show
Well,
up.
now, do you have a Dunkin' booth, and can we get Sheriff Joe Guy on it?
Well, that's been suggested, and we've not decided if we're going to bring in the dunking booth or not. I know that the
It's water related. We'll use river water.
the Calhoun United Methodist pastor Corey, he has volunteered to be on that. I think so. That might bring in some money for
Well,
somebody.
see, I want to volunteer Joe Guy. Now, make sure you have a screen in front of where he's sitting, because some people may throw at him. I don't know. Joe Guy's a great guy. I think he's
We love for him to come on our show.
but great historian too. For that. So
Let me talk about things going on in the community real fast.
okay, go
Ron.
ahead.
Of course, this is holiday week here, so we have fireworks in a lot of different places. But the big one here in Bradley County is Mount Olive, Larry Hill Ford, and it'll be Tuesday night near the Bradley Square Mall. Flint Springs has their 4th of July chicken barbecue. Now, talk about an old community. Flint Springs is a really old community, and it's $8 a plate, and they have it in the old schoolhouse down there just off Dalton Pike in the Flint Springs community. Of course, G Daddy's Barbecue will be up at Etowah Depot on the 4th.
Copper Hill, the Copper Basin or Ducktown Basin activities going on, fireworks, music, all day long. So,
And the fish truck's going to be today down at the Southeastern Bradley County Farmers Co-op. Go pick you up some fish to put in your pond. All right, I think that's it, Ron.
okay.
I want to ask Joe about his house. Joe has a house in Calhoun now, but it came from Walker Valley Road. Tell us briefly about your house.
Yes, my house was located at the Walker Valley Road, very close to Walker Valley High School. It was several different families owned it, but at the time I actually bought it, it was part of the Wilson Dairy Farm. Noah Wilson, an early Charleston merchant and car dealer and farmer, his family grew up and was raised in that house. And the house sat empty for several years, and I was looking for a house that an older house, and the Wilson said, well, we just can't sell the house where it's at because it's right on the dairy farm. And I said, well, what about if I just bought the house and dismantled it and took it to Calhoun? And they said, well, if you want to do that, then go at it. So it's about 1979. I actually just purchased the house and spent 5 or 6 months dismantling and shipping it over to Calhoun and storing it at vast places, barns, and anywhere I could find a place. And then it was a good 10-year process of putting it back together and getting it ready. And we actually moved in 1991. And we're still working on it at times. You know,
it's like a museum.
It never stops.
So how old was the house, you think?
We date it back at least to 1845, 46. We got it traced back through 7 different families. And at that point, we have to start really digging in records because they weren't available at the courthouse anymore here in Bradley County. But it was a timber frame house. It was all pegged with mortise and tenon joints. There were no nails in the structure. And so that dates it at least prior to the Civil War because at the point where sawmills came in, everything started being, framed lumber. But
well, now we had 11 sawmills here when the Cherokees left that were in the area. So it wouldn't be unheard of that you would have sawed wood even in an 1830s house here, even rare.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were doing with it, but they were here. They were here.
All the large beams and everything, each room has a 22-foot beam that crosses it. They're all one big timber, which is hard to find today, but all of those are hewed with an axe. And,
Man.
And they actually just drop back in almost like a puzzle because the framing of the house had the notch cut out where then those big floor joists and ceiling joists just drop back in a notch. And so it's sort of like a puzzle. You put it back together. The house had been updated. It was a very simple, very plain, just 2-story farmhouse. When we stripped it back to the basic structure, we just found big wide plank boards on the walls. But it had been updated late 1800s, early 1900s with some nicer woodwork, which we kept and used in the house. It has a piece of trim called egg and dart, and that's a religious symbol, and it means the beginning and the end. And every door and every window in that house has a great big piece of egg and dart trim across it. So we kept that, and it had a beautiful staircase that had been updated over 100 years ago, and we couldn't dismantle it because we'd never get it back together. So we actually came in, the guys who helped me, we came in with a chainsaw, and we literally cut the house around the chainsaw with the chainsaw until the stairway was actually not touching. And then the stairway upstairs and downstairs was pulled forward and pulled away from the rest of the house, and then we had to get some cranes and get it on trailers. And
and did you ever once say, what in the world am I doing?
Not at that time, but in the last, the older I get, the more I do. But
what's so if we took apart a house like that and put it back together, it looked like something Dr. Seuss had drawn, I'm sure. Even if had you built anything like that before?
No.
So therefore, he just went right ahead.
And he never has again.
No, that's.
He didn't do anything.
It is gorgeous.
Well, did you get the outhouse with it?
The outhouse?
No, I didn't bring an outhouse. If I could have brought a barn, I would have brought a barn. I'd love to have had the barn or something. But anyway, I made modifications, but still, when you drive up to the house, the Wilson family, especially the grandkids, when they drive up, right off, they just say, "Ooh, this is creepy," because, and then when they walk in the front door, there's the staircase, and we have lots of pictures of the Wilson generations inside the house.
I love it.
And they've come back at Christmas, and we will have photos of them as children 60, 70 years ago, like standing on the staircase, and they've come back at Christmas and taken the same portrait again. And so we've got an extended family. It's not just our family. We feel like the Wilsons are a part of the house.
Probably
too.
this part. Eddie Wilson, was he part of that family?
Yes.
Okay, Eddie Wilson, then his daughter Ginger Wilson.
Yeah.
Buchanan.
Eddie's grandfather he had the house, and I actually bought the house from Eddie's dad, which was Ed Wilson. And then of course you've got Ginger and
The barn that's still there, is that the barn that went with the house?
yes.
Yeah. The hay barn. I guess it's a hay mule barn.
Yeah, it's
whatever.
a fairly decorative barn. It's a little bit different than what you see around here, and that's a flair for the. There was a family called Faust who lived in that house way prior to the Wilsons, and that suggests a German name, and a lot of barns and things. People put a German influence in the way they built their barns.
There's something different about that barn.
Something different about.
And they've maintained it so well over the years. I'm thinking that was, it could have been Pleasant Craigmile's farm, too, at some point in time, because he filed damages to, of course, all the folks back in the day had numerous farms because they were making money with the crops.
Wasn't the Spriggs in there also?
The Spriggs and the Clevelands lived right in that area too, but I'm thinking that Pleasant Craigmile filed a claim that the boards were taken off of his barn and the boards were taken off of his porch, and they were taken to Charleston, I believe, to build a ferry with or something. But it seems to me, by reading the description, it is that farm.
It could be.
And I'll tell everybody about finding the name on on the planks.
Yes, every board, trim, around the windows, around the doors, all the doors, everything. If you look on the back of it, there's written in crayon, it says R.M. McKnight. Now, Mr. McKnight is the one who in the early 1900s upgraded the house with some new trim work, because he took a very plain house at the time, which was probably mid-1840s, and made it nicer. But he was really particular about lumber, and he didn't want a single knot in any piece of wood in that house. So he literally sat as it was being sawed and would write his name on the back of it, and that meant he approved it. And so every
Can we say control freak?
Yeah. So everything in that house has his name written on the back of it.
We need about 1,000 more people just like you, Joe, doing things like this.
Isn't that wonderful?
Folks, you're listening to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can call your friends if they live in Kansas, and they can be hearing us and seeing us. If you live in Calhoun, you may have to go to the internet. And we don't get out far too soon, but you can call us here at 614-5553. That's 614-5553. Got Laura Spann and Joe Bryan here today, and we're talking about Calhoun, Tennessee, and the Rivertown Festival coming up July 15th. They're going to have barbecue and a free ride up the river. I'm in. I seen a picture on Facebook. They have let's get this phone call here. Remember that question, Ron?
Is it Lauren
Good morning, Good morning, you're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron. This is Beverly Johnson.
Hey, Beverly.
Beverly, what's going on, sister?
I have some history to tell you about Calhoun.
Go ahead.
When the old brick schoolhouse was up there was a sawmill north of the husband's daddy worked that sawmill. And so some years back, my husband, we went back in there trying to find that sawmill where it was, and of course it's gone. And also, talking about post office, the old post office that Mrs. Sawpaw,
Miss Hattie.
well, my husband and I painted the inside of that post office one time.
You know, that building was a bank, originally, and I did find the only probably existing picture of the inside of that building when it was the bank in 1923.
Woo!
Mm-hmm. And of course, then it was converted to the post office. Well, that's an interesting story. I said that we always thought the post office was really cool because at some point they had put in the little combination locks on there, so you could get your mail. I still remember our combination.
Yeah, and funny, but I can't remember what I had for breakfast.
Well,
Beverly, did you guys live in Calhoun?
no, my daddy was reared in McMinn County, and he went to school first in a one-room schoolhouse off of Bowater Road. And then they built that big new school, and he went to school there.
And what was his name?
My daddy was James Nelson Morrow.
Okay.
He was a preacher, wasn't he?
My daddy was a preacher, yes, sir. And, of course, he's over 100. He's dead now, but would be over 100 years
I
old.
started to say, what year was he born? I have so many old school pictures that I was just curious. What year would he have been born?
1921.
1921.
And my father-in-law that worked at the old sawmill, of course, he's been dead and gone for a long time. I don't even know what year he was born.
Mm-hmm. And what was his name?
Roy Lee Johnson.
Now, that name sounds familiar.
And but he worked at a sawmill up there. Now, that's some things my husband, has told me in the past.
Right.
And, of course, my husband is dead.
Yeah,
now.
we lost Mr. George. Do you have any pictures, Beverly?
I don't think I do.
Okay.
I might have some old pictures of if I get to going through my pictures, but now my husband's name was George William Lee Johnson, and he was cousin to the George Johnson that the Hardy.
Bobby. Well, we call him Bobby, but I started to say his name. His name was George,
Yes,
too. And so he was his cousin.
Who my husband was named. That was his in the Johnson family, and my husband was named George Johnson.
And so I wonder if your husband's dad, do you think he was the first cousin of Bobby Johnson? Like your husband's dad and Bobby's dad, who was also named George, were brothers?
I think that I could just call him Mr. Johnson that started the Hardys.
Right.
I think he and his daddy and my husband's daddy were first cousins.
Okay. I've got something interesting. I said, you can't give me your phone number over the air, I don't suppose. Do you know her well enough?
We can take her off air and get the number.
When you go off air, give the phone number to Ron in case I found any pictures. I have old pictures. You were talking about that one-room schoolhouse, and I don't know if it's, there was a one-room school there north of the big brick school. And then there were other old community schools all scattered around there, and C.L. McAllister, bless him, had run pictures of those in the newspapers, and the names of the students are in a lot of those pictures, so it may be that I could find some.
All right, Beverly, you need to go get those pictures out.
So, you know what, Ron? I want y'all to remember me. I'm going to have surgery on my knee, redo my knee.
Well, after,
You'll be good as new.
so you're going to be sitting there for a long time.
Go ahead and get the boxes out.
Right. Get the boxes out.
All of those coats that full of pictures.
Here, I'm going to take you off the air here, and
Okay.
and Deb's going to get you.
Deb should have my phone number.
Well, we're going to get it here one more time to make sure.
And we'll
So
write it down.
don't
I
talk.
lost all my contacts.
I'm saying I wrote down all the while you're talking. I made notes here, so
But Beverly, don't talk till Deb says hello, okay? 'Cause if you do, you'll be saying things on the air. Hold on a second. Here we go.
I enjoyed talking with you.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Are you there, Beverly?
Did we lose her?
Are you there, Beverly? Hey, there you are.
Okay. Now my turn to ask. I got two questions.
All right.
I seen on the Calhoun Community History, Tennessee slot. There's a Kevin Tinsley posted a picture of a store
Right.
ran by L.N. Tinsley.
Mm-hmm.
And so now the reason I want to tie that together, the Tinsley family was well known here in Cleveland. So L.N. Tinsley's son is standing in that picture. He's, I think, 3 years old. His name was M.L. Tinsley. Ran the store over here on Wildwood. And you remember the Cherokee restaurants and several restaurants around town? Well, that's that same Tinsley family. And that was a great picture. So where was the L.N. Tinsley store? Pretty old store, wasn't it?
Yes, and actually, there's two buildings that the Tinsleys ended up with, and if you all are listening, call in and correct me. But I said there was the store that we all remember as Boland's store was actually built way back before that, before the Bolands had it. Martin, there was a Martin that had it. The Tinsleys had that store too, and it was kind of like a community building because at one time the post office was in it and the bank,
Right.
before the bank moved in the bank building, it was in it. Then there is a brick building that's there that's across the street now, and it's one of the two old buildings that are still down in Calhoun. And Kevin Tinsley has refurbished that and painted it.
Oh, has
and
he?
he's running a building, ran a business out of that. Yes.
So
and he's the one that owns the it's fireplace grill.
I
I
can't
can't remember.
Well,
I'm sorry.
like I said, but L.N. Tinsley, his son M.L. Tinsley, ran over on Wildwood Avenue. Tinsley's. It later became Stoney's Supermarket. They had several restaurants. There's Sam Tinsley worked in the auto parts.
And so
Direct
Tinsley
store.
sold the Calhoun business and moved to Cleveland.
Well,
That's part of his.
Then M.L. Tinsley, one of his sons' name is Bobby Tinsley, which married my
Aunt.
and they ran a restaurant here called the Country Kitchen on South Lee. It was all the chicken you could eat for $1. And I remember the day they said they're going to have to go up to $1.25, and I said they've ruined their business. No one will pay $1.25 for all the chicken you could eat. And I thought it was a great place to eat because I usually didn't even have to pay the dollar, when I went in. So, but that was a tie that Calhoun, Cleveland, those names, but Ellen Tinsley store, and it was in downtown there. And you say that building has been remodeled by Kevin.
Right.
Well, great. I know you love to see old buildings refurbished in downtown.
Because there's so few of those left. We had a Masonic Hall there that was probably one of the most historic buildings I know in East Tennessee, maybe all of East Tennessee, because it had Civil War history connected with that also. And of course it, I said now that we're looking back on it, we wish we could have restored the buildings, but at the time that they needed to be restored, we're all working and got little kids, and I said you just don't get involved in it, and then it's too late.
The restoration costs money,
Right.
and then
In a town of 500, it's
is the building rentable afterwards, or what are you going to do in it? If you're not going to live in it, it makes it even tougher. So I understand that being a problem. So now my second question is, on your Facebook page, which everybody joined, the pictures are unbelievable, and you can see a picture of Laura in a bikini.
Well, no, it's not a bikini, but it's
It's a one-piece bathing suit. Oh my! I said and actually I said there's pictures of me in that for 2 different years. We're up at Klingman's Dome. I posted that because I thought it was historic because of the Klingman's Dome sign, and I'm not even 2 years old in that picture. And then there's some other pictures of me. I still have that little swimsuit, and I put my little granddaughter in it and took pictures of her in it. And her mom and daddy are not listening. They don't know that yet.
No, you still have that bikini. I'd like to see you in that bikini now.
I could probably fit it on one foot, put it over my head. Yes,
I had to
still
say
have
that.
it.
I had to say it. But it's unbelievable pictures. Calhoun community history, right?
Right.
And then put Tennessee.
Yeah.
And like I say, you can join that. And it will.
It's an open group, and so just go in and do a request, and anybody in the group can approve your request. So I started it on. This is June. On May the 19th, so we're out about 6 weeks, and we're getting close to about 450 members in it.
That's
so
great.
we're going to have more members in it than we have residents in Calhoun. But a lot of the people that are on it, they're not Calhoun residents, that we've connected with the Cleveland and Tennessee history page, and people that I think I was surprised. You were talking about Bowater. There is a Bowater, kind of a Bowater history group, but people they go in and reminisce about early days at Bowater and post early pictures of Bowater. And when you think about Bowater and it moving in, that was a huge industry.
Oh, yeah.
We have a video. Sometime the Historical Society, the Charleston Calhoun Hiwassee Historical Society, we need to have a meeting and show this short video that was done during the time of the construction of Bowater, and there was a few interviews with some.
We've watched that. It's really good.
Yeah, somebody posted online.
Well, we need to we need to do that now too, because when we saw it a few years ago, the people in the audience was going, "That's so and so," and that they only knew their nicknames.
Right.
But we could
and
maybe get those names now.
Talk with the people. Right, that were here. We call it, pre and post Bowater, but we were here, but that's the year I was born. It's the year that Bowater opened.
Mr. Alley moved from Newfoundland.
Newfoundland.
Right,
Newfoundland.
and other people.
And he was 16, 17 years old and come with his dad to work there at the plant. And
that's Melissa Woody's father.
Yeah. He had never eaten fresh peaches. They were always canned up there. They didn't grow peaches on that rock. Newfoundland is a rock, basically. And so he was in downtown Cleveland.
He'd only seen corn in a can, too.
And so he went to a stand up there in downtown Cleveland by the courthouse. He said he ate about 2 dozen peaches, the juice running down the front of his shirt. He said it was the best thing he ever had. And then he got a car and went missing for about 2 weeks. There's a fly attacking us.
It was a big one.
It's a big one. I'm surprised the microphones aren't picking it up.
He said he got lost for 2 weeks just riding around. He said, you could ride forever. And but, he was here in the early days of that. And, of course.
And people moved in from Bogalusa, Louisiana.
South Carolina.
In New Orleans. And when I was on the radio the last time, and we were talking some about Calhoun history, and I didn't finish a story because I was afraid that the lady that had told it to me would not want me to tell it. Not that it's embarrassing or anything. And later I talked with her and her daughter, and they said, oh, it would have been fine. And so I have to tell a little story about people moving into Calhoun. Of course, the people came in, and like you said, I mean, they were the lady that I was talking about lived in New Orleans. She went to school. She walked to school on the streets of New Orleans. So it's not like any countryside of Louisiana. So she was a city girl. And so they moved to Calhoun. Of course, she thought she was really out in the wild sticks, I guess. But they came in, they rented a house because they were building the houses over in the housing development. And her mom sent her down to Boland's grocery store, which was the store that was downtown, a little country store, to get bread and sandwich meat to make some sandwiches. And so Mary went down there and she got the items that she wanted. And Mr. Boland said, do you want a Poke? Meaning a paper sack,
Right.
a paper bag.
Yeah.
She didn't know what he meant. And she's a kid. She's probably about a sophomore in high school. And Mr. Boland, is an older man, and was asking her if she wanted a poke. And she said, I grabbed those things and ran out the door.
I'm not sure what that was, and I didn't want one.
So Mary Guthrie, there's your story. If anybody's
How
listening or knows
funny.
Mary Guthrie, it was really cute.
Folks, you're listening to Old Town Cleveland here on
Where you can only hear the word poke right here.
Listen to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9. We got Laura Spann here and Joe Bryan, and we're talking about
Pokes.
the history of Calhoun, Tennessee, and we're talking about the Rivertown Festival. So give us a call here at 614-5553. If you have stories, we'd love to hear them. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
Well, good morning.
Hey, Miss Joe. What's going on, sister?
I missed you last Saturday.
I know that you did.
I did.
Every now and then I just have to run away.
Well, I can't blame you at all. I kind of feel like that myself this morning. But anyway, it's so good to have you back.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
I've enjoyed this, but when you first started, you lost me. I was out in the woods. I know nothing about Charleston, Calhoun, Riceville, or nothing.
What do you do now?
Pardon?
You know about it now.
Well, I know a little bit, but, I'm just dumb in it because I've never been there, and all. But I've enjoyed it. I enjoyed that lady and the gentleman there.
Yeah, I bet you enjoyed Joe talking about taking his house apart and putting it back together.
You know why she's never been to Charleston and Calhoun? I know why she's never been to Charleston and Calhoun.
Because
They don't sell Jack Daniels up there.
And another thing, you wasn't with me where I got it.
Yeah.
She laid out on me.
Well, you wanted me to buy.
Of course. Is the man supposed to buy for the women?
Yes,
Yep.
ma'am.
Right, if he's a man.
That's right.
But if he's nothing, he won't buy it.
But, after about 15 fifths, though, goodness.
Ron, I'll tell you what, you make my day, I told Jim and Debbie.
Well, we're glad
We're
we're glad
glad.
to do that.
Now, you didn't call in one week and it worried Ron.
Last week.
So you got to call us every week so we know you're okay.
I'm going to tell you why. And I appreciate it if you'll put it out that my nephew has got cancer. He is totally eat up with cancer. And he's waiting on his doctor to call him and tell him if he can do anything for him. And to look at the man, you would think he was in perfect health. His wife's leukemia, and look at her, you'd think the same thing about her. But they're both.
Well, we're sorry to hear that, Joe, and we know that breaks your heart.
Well, hopefully tomorrow I'll get to go see him.
Sounds good. All right, Miss Joe, we got to get off of here. Appreciate you calling. Always fun to talk to you.
Well, I appreciate y'all, and I enjoyed that gentleman and the lady there.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for
No
listening.
Jack Daniels and fireworks at the same time.
Bye, Miss Joe.
Bye-bye.
We always enjoy Joe's call. Let's go back and let Joe talk about the Rivertown Festival that's happening July 15th, just the highlights there, the things that people can sign up and come do, Mr. Joe.
Dates, website, definitely a website so we can get more people to sign up.
That's correct. You can still participate in the Run to the River. It's a 5K or a 1K fun walk. Anyone from kindergarten through adult can enter the cardboard regatta. The pedal parade is for younger children. That will be at the Meadowlands. Youth and adults can participate in the fishing tournament. The photo contest has youth and adult categories. And if you need any information about these items, these events, or if you need the entry form, which you can email it back into us, or you can hand deliver it to Calhoun City Hall there in Calhoun. All that's at www.calhounrivertown.com, and go to the festival page, and you'll find all that at the top of the page. and also an email contact where you can send any questions. We're watching that hourly, so we're keeping up, and we'll respond to you and let you know. So there's still time to get into any of the events, and we encourage you to. We want you up in Calhoun on the 15th of July. Yes, it's probably going to be hot, but it's a river festival, and we're going to have some water events, and come up and take a boat ride up the Hiwassee on a pontoon boat, or just come up and sit on the riverbank if you've never done that. But we want you to experience the river and the small town at the same time. And like I said, we have a big variety of food going to be available. We've got a huge variety of craft items. We've got crafters all the way from Tellico all the way down towards Chattanooga. They're going to be there. We have entertainment on the stage all day. Some of those that'll be there are Cole Sitzler, Faith Willing, Tiffany Gardia, the Shady Valley Boys with the Howards and Caleb Lehman, Angie Murphy, Nyota Freeway. We actually have also some performers who are coming through the Tennessee Overhill. The Tennessee Arts Commission endorses them, and we've been able to get some of them down. And these will be the first people performing on the new stage at the new pavilion on that day. And we're going to have some large tents set up. So if you come in and you want to buy your lunch or your supper, we'll have areas in the shade under tents with tables. You can come and sit down. And we have picnic tables around the park. So we just want you to come up and check us out. And the week before the festival, and we'll be putting this on the website, we will put in the paper and on our website the detailed schedules of when each event takes place, and the performers on stage and the times they'll be there. So it's everything is staggered all day, so you can come, and it gives you the ability to go to the river if you wanted to and do an event down there or watch it. Then you can be back at the park for the next event over there. So you can participate in a lot of different things. And it will all begin that morning at 8 a.m. with the run to the river.
My question to Joe was that I thought that I would do the walk, and it's from the park down to the river, and then the run is from the park all the way up to the Hiwassee Baptist Church. And then I said, how do you get back?
Run.
If you can run that far, you're in shape. That's not a problem for me.
Actually,
Calhoun First Baptist will be running their church bus, and they will come and pick you up at the end of the races and bring you back to the park. Or if someone came with you, they may follow at the end of the race and go on up towards Hiwassee Baptist Church. A husband or wife could come and pick you up. But if you don't have transportation, we have it available, and we'll pick you up and get you back to the park site.
Wonderful.
And I'm going to do the walking part, walk over to the barbecue place, walk over to the tent. And
I need some homemade ice cream.
And I'm going to go over to the...
I need some popcorn.
Take that ride up the river. And
I think that's going to be great.
Yeah. July 15th, folks. What time does things start?
10
a.m. to 6 p.m.
All right. So make sure somebody calls us that morning and says, hey, guys, we're doing a River Fest up here today.
Did you just dream this up, Joe? I mean, did one day you think, hey, Calhoun really needs to do this? What was the...
Well, we hadn't had, for 10 years, we had a big festival up there, which was the Hiwassee Meadowland Arts and Crafts Show. And that came in starting in 1986. And it ran for 10 years and was really a big event. And then, things, fell by the wayside and that stopped. Well, then last year after the school celebration, we saw all those people back in the park and vendors and everyone enjoying it. So we started thinking last fall, we need to come up with a festival.
Mm-hmm.
But the county really supports their festivals by designating some of the hotel motel tax back to the local festivals, because the whole point is to bring people into the county, and people spend money and on the taxes. So the other towns have some festival unique to them, so we had to have something that nobody else had. Well, the one thing Calhoun had is the river. So we just brainstormed a little bit starting in January, and started sending emails to different people saying, we could do a river festival and call it the Rivertown Festival. And so then everybody started coming in saying, well, everything needs to have a water theme. And so we started naming the events. And so that's where we're at today. And, first time, this is our kickoff, and we'll learn from this one, but hopefully you'll see it again next year.
And we're going to keep it going, because in 2 years, we will have the 200th anniversary of the founding of the town of Calhoun. It was formed in 1819, so in 2019, we'll be 200 years old.
We're very lucky to live in this area here with the history here, and I think finally that our communities are starting to identify these areas. Charleston with Fort Cass, we need the importance of Calhoun, because if you got to cross the river, you have to come through Calhoun. And so that's very important. The Walker Ferry is an important place. There's just all kind of activities there. We're very, very fortunate, and thanks to people like Joe and Laura, who's helping save that Calhoun history, and people like Darlene Goins over and hundreds more over in the Charleston side. The Park Service is actually we're going to have a walking trail from the Hiawassee Heritage Center all the way down to the river with interpretive signs. They're rebuilding the Hiawassee Heritage, the old bank building. They're expanding it, and you won't recognize it as a building you see. I've seen the drawings. It's great. And so it's important. It's good for the business to have people come into your community and purchase things. So
I'm really pleased with how, the businesses jumped in, like with the pavilion.
Yeah, it was just amazing.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. We drove by there, it was going over the road, going over to 411, I believe, where we were going, and just, it's talking about going around Bowater Road. That's what we call it. I don't know is that the name of it?
That's what we call it.
I said, if you live in Calhoun, you also call that the Etowah Road. And if you live in Etowah, you call it the Bowater Road, because it depends on where you're going. Where you go road out there.
As you go around through there, there's a couple of interesting places. But what is it? The old True store? Is that on the left going out? Mm-hmm. How old is that store? And it's not. There's nobody does anything with it now, is it?
In the last 10 years, it was still open, though, wasn't it? Has it been 10 years or longer?
It's been longer than 10 years. I assume that goes back to, late 1800s, early 1900s. I remember going in it, one of the few places you could go in, and they prepared sandwiches there using the big cheese in the hoop.
Oh, yeah.
And
slice that bologna right off that big old tube, yeah.
It's just, it's empty. I still think it belongs in the True family, but
they seem to be keeping a roof on it, so maybe they're, not going to let it rot down.
Yeah.
Okay, and now come back this way when you turn off US 11 Bowater. Down there on the left, you go over to what they called the Bowater Mansion, and there's the Getty Mill right there. It's a big mill, wasn't it? What did they do right there?
Well, that, of course, all that area has a story, too. That was part of a Cherokee reservation of Allen Bird Grubbs. And they built the mill there because the East Nolly Creek is there, and they built that mill, the Geddes family, which actually is part of the Gettysburg Geddes. And the town was called Sanfordville. And now, they moved over to the highway, and it became Sanford, but there was a post office there and the mill, and they had small homes there that where the workers lived, and had a company store that was there, and those buildings are still there. And so, Joe, what kind of mill was it though? Was it it was a textile mill, wasn't it? Okay, that's what I was thinking, is a textile mill.
But the
little
front
store across the street there.
somebody's still living in
Yes,
it.
it is a residence. And so anyway, and speaking of that, then when we were talking about the Facebook page, one of the first posts on the Facebook page after we started it was a picture of the Sanford Depot. There was a Sanford Depot at Sanford on the highway, on Highway 11, which none of us had ever seen a picture of that. And that's not there now, but thank goodness somebody thought, to keep it. In fact, she said it had been on the wall in her grandparents' house. And so there's a lot of links back. Once you bring up a topic with somebody, it's nice that somebody will take the time to get in their picture box.
Get in that picture box, boy. We preach that all the time. Such a great area. Now, Walker Ferry, where is that actually located? Is it at there's a little dead-end street and it's blocked there? Is that Walker Ferry there?
Joe, you just described that.
If you went down Main Street in Calhoun as it is today, if you just kept going straight, that turns into a little narrow street, which that used to go all the way to the river.
Okay.
And the ferry would have been right down at the end of South Main Street, right down there. And
you can tell that from that plat.
Yeah.
We said we had the 1819 plat, so it's marked on the
And
plat.
one of the reasons for, doing the Rivertown Festival is, we're hoping it'll lead to other things, like we could get back down on the river and maybe get some leases from TVA to open up some more areas
Or a
down
dock
there,
or something.
and have we've talked about doing a boardwalk that you could walk from like the old mill site all the way back down to the old part of Calhoun, and that's going to be marked on the Blue Way with the historical significance. So, in the future, if things ever worked out, you could have a lot more. You could literally have a Rivertown Festival at the river.
Yes.
Is there any kind of landing left down there? Is there a wharf or anything, or is the you would know it's a ferry unless somebody just told me?
It would have been just right to the left of the railroad bridge, and all that's just a low area. Of course, it's all been changed quite a bit with railroad excavation and
Water.
other things that's come in, and TVA has changed.
Yeah, high water can change a lot of things. Real quick, too.
Yeah, whether you want it to or not.
There's two things. Flooding in Calhoun, have you had great flooding because you're on the river, or does it flood the other side?
We don't get the flooding that Charleston gets. We've seen it up over all the boat dock back onto the Cherokee Crossing, but that's what we would call a 100-year flood. But
Big one.
But it's not like Charleston, where everything backs up right through the center
There's
of town.
a little creek runs right there, goes right down by the Hendeker house, and
Yeah.
boy, it really
Spring.
floods.
That's a spring, yeah.
Back in there. So the other thing is, 1957, there's a big train wreck in Calhoun. I didn't know that till the other day I seen your Facebook page.
And Mr. Oliver Rowe, who was one of the gentlemen who moved here from Bogalusa, Louisiana, and he took pictures and had slides, and so his son Sidney and I are the same age, and I asked him one day, I said, did your family have a picture box? And he said, we have a slide box. And so I got a slide scanner, and we found those pictures of the wreck. It would have been down there and down in the old part of Calhoun, and on the Calhoun side, and apparently it was something related to the switch, and which was not set correctly. And I said that train derailed. But some of the interesting stories after I posted the pictures of that were that people would remember. Somebody said, well, there was a carload of Similac, baby formula on it, and it was in cases, and if they weren't damaged, they would give them to you. And sure enough, when I zoomed in on the picture, you could see the Similac boxes and the cans of Similac
Just give it
laying
to you.
all
How
around through there.
funny.
Yes.
All righty. Ron, this 2 hours has just zoomed by.
Well,
And next week's show, is the Oak Grove School Reunion Show.
Yes.
And then the week after that's going to be the Parksville Cabin Show. We're going to have some folks come talking about their families owning those cabins for generations up there. And
Deb and I both attended Oak Grove Elementary at one time. Deb, I went there for 7 years, and Deb went for...
I've spent a lifetime there because I taught there for 25 years.
And if by chance you had old pictures of Calhoun or any of this area, if you'll just contact Debbie. I said Debbie and I are in contact very frequently. And so I'd love to see them. I keep a scanner. I said, I don't live here now, but I said, my mom lives in Calhoun. I keep a scanner, computer, printer at her house, and so I'd be happy to scan them and return them to you.
And we
same
have
day.
them too.
Right.
We'll be glad to do that.
Well, pop in the Hiwassee Heritage Center up there. They probably can help
Joe,
you.
thank you. Laura, thank you.
And
as always,
congratulations.
great job. And we tell people every week, and people may get bored by me saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Go get those pictures from out from under the bed, up and under the bed. That's that term, as Southerners use, up and under the bed. Someone told me, they said, you go put it up and put it under the bed. That's where up and under the bed come from. You got drawers.
Get it out of the pokes.
You got the drawers, and how you poke, and out of the closet, out of those tubs in the garage. Find those old pictures. Find your grandparents, your dad, your mom, your uncles, neighbors, and have them help you write who's in those pictures or what those pictures are. Go and get some archival labels or archival ink, and that will be better than just writing it on the pictures with a ballpoint pen, because 10 years from now that ballpoint pen's going to come through. So do that, and then share those pictures. Calhoun is doing a great job. Cleveland has really started doing a great job here. Old Town Cleveland has one. The History Branch has one. Cleveland, Tennessee History has one. Those are great sites, and I share stuff from theirs, and they share back and forth. I don't care where it came from. I'll give you credit all day long if it's your picture or you found the picture. So we love to do that. So do that. Record your parents, your grandparents, write down their stories. Everybody's got a cell phone now, and you can record that. So it's very, very important to save your history, because every day someone dies, so does our history, unless it's written down somewhere. Deb, we'll always remember Pearl Harbor.
But will we remember Aunt Pearl? We'll see you here next week on Old Town Cleveland.
Bye-bye, y'all.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
And you're listening to WOOPLP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.